What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Hoopers Lounge with myself and Alex. And today, on this fine evening, we will finally be talking basketball. The NBA Offseason review is here from the Hoopers Lounge. We're back to our roots, and that is talking basketball. A lot happened this offseason. I mean, so much that when I was writing down my notes earlier, I forgot half the stuff that I wrote down that it had happened with all the anticipation for football and everything else going on in the sports world with the playoffs. It was a very loud offseason in the NBA, and we are going to talk it all: trades, drafts, expectations, everything, and then we'll finish it off with a blind ranking. So, Alex, I'll leave you the floor, and you can get it started. Anything you want to talk about that happened this offseason?
Well, you are absolutely right. It was an absolutely chaotic offseason considering all the trades, the free agency signings, contract extensions, which there were definitely some notable ones this offseason. The draft, which the lottery completely shook up how any of us thought it would play out. It was an offseason. And I will kick us off with my favorite free agent signing, which well, actually, what I'm going to do is kick off with our least free agent signing because this is what's on my mind. And my least free agent signing is Miles Turner to the Bucks, and this is me as a Bucks fan. So the Bucks are my favorite team, but the signing, I don't hate the signing itself as much as what the signing means. It means the Bucks are desperate. It means this was their last chance to build a contender around Giannis. And there were a bunch of Giannis trade rumors all around the offseason that we heard of. The Miles Turner signing has kind of negated a bit of that. But with the Miles Turner signing, it came at the cost of Damian Lillard, a player who just two off seasons ago, the Bucks mortgaged essentially their entire future, their first rounders up until 2031, for two seasons with Damian Lillard, which both ending in first round playoff exits. It was definitely an underwhelming Bucks tenure for an all-time great point guard. And the Miles Turner shining just shows that the Bucks, they're not looking to be they're not going to be top tier contenders in the East. They don't have the talent to compete anymore. Their depth is essentially sapped. Aside from Giannis, they've traded away Middleton, they've traded away Holiday, Lopez left in free agency. All their core starters from the championship teams are gone. And I think the Bucks' time as contenders in the East has passed. I think the Miles Turner signing epitomizes that. Not a knock on Miles Turner as a player, but I think it was a move that reeked of desperation, of trying to stay relevant with with an all-time great like Giannis. And if anything, it bought them a second-round exit instead of a first. I am not a believer in the Bucks this season.
Wow, coming from the Bucks fan, that is kind of crazy. I saw the Bucks moves completely in the opposite direction. And I even wrote down that they had the most underrated moves in the offseason, in my opinion, signing Miles Turner and Cole
Wow.
Anthony. Um, I think both Miles Turner and Cole Anthony fill needs that the Bucks needed. One, like you already mentioned, Brook Lopez going over to the Clippers in free agency. Miles Turner's going to fill that need defensively for sure. He's going to fill that need, and offensively, I think at this point in his career, he's a better option than Brook Lopez. So I think that's a major upgrade for the Bucks in that department. And Cole Anthony is going to provide a huge spark off the bench scoring, which is something that the Bucks have had in the past, but they haven't been able to sustain it for a full season. I remember last year in the playoffs, Gary Trent had a crazy series against Indiana, but he was never that player for 82 games straight. I think Cole Anthony can provide that consistency off the bench, which is something the Bucks have lacked. And to your point about the Bucks not being contenders in the East, I agree that they're going to need some things to fall their way. But with the Jason Tatum injury, I now see Giannis as the clear-cut best player in the East, and I think that he is still good enough to carry his team to at least the Eastern Conference Finals. Again, like I said, they're going to have to get through the season. They're going to have to gel as a team. But I actually have higher hopes for the Bucks than you do this season, and I think that has to do with maybe the downfall of Boston that I'm anticipating.
Yeah, but to your point, the downfall of Boston, that, I mean, we're going to be predicting our conference standings later on in a different episode, shameless promo. But the downfall of Boston also coincides with the rise of other teams in the East. We saw the Knicks make their first Eastern Conference Finals last year, and they retained, aside from their coach, basically every key part of their roster. We saw the Hawks and the Magic make huge offseason moves with the Hawks getting Kristaps Porzingis and Alexander Walker to complement Trae Young. The Magic trading their entire future for Desmond Bane, adding much needed shooting to their team. So it's hard for me to see the Bucks competing when all these other teams are making additions, and we're still going to have the Cavs who won 64 games last year, and they didn't lose any key parts of the rotation. They're not going away anytime soon. DeAndre Hunter is going to have a full year to integrate with the team, so on paper they're only going to be better. This isn't knocking the Miles Turner signing, right? Miles Turner is a great player, and I do see him as an upgraded Brook Lopez. He's younger than Brook Lopez. He will provide that defensive paint protection that Brook Lopez provided for a while before he started to decline in recent years. And he is a stretch five, which Brook Lopez also was. So that in theory should be a seamless fit. But we mortgaged our entire future for a superstar that didn't pan out in Damian Lillard and got in return for him, just waived him to get out of his contract and buyout, which is going to cost us $20 million over the next 5 years. You were talking about the Bucks' depth. That is the issue. That is why I don't see them competing with the Knicks and the Cavs and the Hawks and the Magic and whoever else ends up at the top. Cole Anthony is a good player, but we haven't seen him be able to handle that primary scorer load with his time at the Magic, which in the Magic we're always in need of a point guard. If Cole Anthony were good enough, that opportunity would have been his, I think. We also have Kevin Porter Jr. on the roster who, much like Cole Anthony, has scoring burst, has some games where he's a very good offensive threat, but also games where he's a no-show. And one of those two young guards for the Bucks to make noise in the East is going to have to step up. And at this point in their careers, I don't see it happening for either of them.
One final thing on the Bucks before I switch topics, and it has to do with Cole Anthony. I think he didn't get the opportunity in Orlando just because of how good defensively Jalen Suggs was. And still is, not was, still is. I think that was part of the reason that Cole Anthony got the boot to the bench and ultimately why he's no longer on the Magic. I think it had more to do with his defense than his offensive capabilities and being that primary scorer. But that's just my thoughts on that. I do agree, though, the Damian Lillard saga in Milwaukee was a total failure, and it's going to be difficult for them to move on. But I still believe in Giannis. He's still the best player in the East. He's still a top 3 player in the league. And we've seen players in the NBA carry teams to the finals with less than what Milwaukee has to work with this year. And so I'm optimistic for Milwaukee, but I'm not going to spoil my predictions, but I'm optimistic. That's what I'll keep that.
I have seen reports, some postings on Instagram that say that Doc Rivers is prepared to hand Giannis the keys to the offense, essentially making him the point guard. So Giannis could put up very big numbers, and if the Bucks are good, he could work his way into MVP conversation. But again, a lot of ifs there. And if Giannis gets hurt, there goes the season.
Yeah, I agree with that. Giannis is like the entire organization this season, as he is most years, but this year in particular he is. And I want to circle around to a team that you mentioned in the East that is getting better that I circled when I was taking notes for this episode, and that is the Atlanta Hawks. I love what they did in the offseason. However, it's clear to me that this is a prove-it year for the Hawks, and it's a prove-it year for Trae Young. If Atlanta does not perform to their expectations, whatever that may be in the building, whether that's to win the finals, whether that's to make the finals, whether that's to make the Eastern Conference Finals, whatever they feel to be the expectation for the 2025-26 season, if they do not reach that expectation, I believe Trae Young, this will be his last year as a Hawk. They have given him time and time again to prove himself. He had that great run a few years ago to the Eastern Conference Finals where he carried a team of, I would say, average to slightly above average role players to the Eastern Conference Finals. And now, again, getting Porzingis, Alexander Walker. They also added Luke Kennard, who's a sharpshooter in the NBA. Pairing that with the young talent they have in Jalen Johnson and Ricochet from last year, I think this is Atlanta's year, especially, again, I'm going to harp on this probably all episode talking about the East. The downfall of Boston, these teams have to take advantage this year before Jason Tatum comes back, before the Celtics reload and revamp. Because the Celtics, when they're healthy, are a top 3 team in the East every year, as so long as they have Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I truly believe that. And this is a year where they don't have Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown together. So these teams in the East have to take advantage. And I think Atlanta is one of those teams that is going to try and go all out this year. I expect them to make more moves throughout the season this year, trading for more pieces, trying to make a run and build around Trae Young one final time. Alex, what do you think about that take? Do you agree, disagree?
I agree to an extent. I do think it is a prove year for Trae Young. I mean, after his incredible run in 2021, the Hawks haven't had much, if any, playoff success. I'm pretty sure they haven't won a series since then. And I mean, some years they haven't even made it out of the play-in rounds. But what I am concerned about is the fit that Trae Young will have with Porzingis, which is the notable free agent acquisition that the Hawks made this year. Trae Young has thrived best in his career much like Luka Doncic, when he has a lob threat. And we saw Luka succeed with lob threats like Derek Lively and even guys like Dwight Powell, who, all respect to Dwight Powell, I wouldn't call him a all NBA center or anything near that. But Porzingis is, at this point in his career, is not a lob threat. Injuries have taken away much, if not all, of his athleticism. At this point, he's mainly a pick and pop. And I don't think that fits well with the game of Trae Young. I do like the shooters they acquire, like Luke Kennard. I think it's a great signing. He'll pair very well with Trae Young. He'll get a lot of open threes from the attention that Trae Young gets. And I like getting Nickeil Alexander-Walker to complement Trae Young's defensive deficiencies. But in terms of the big man, the most important part in any pick and roll scheme, I don't think the Hawks got the right guy. I don't think Porzingis is going to be that lob threat that Trae Young needs that'll open up spacing along the outside for the rest of the team. I think he's only going to clog up the perimeter, and it's going to make life rough for the Hawks offense. But I'm still very high on the Hawks. I still think they have a very good team surrounding Trae Young. I mean, Dyson Daniels really stepped up last year, and if he takes another leap this year, he'll be among the best two-way players in the league, which he's an incredible perimeter defender, among the best in the NBA. If his offensive game steps up, if he can knock down even 38% of his three-pointers, the Hawks could be scary, but I don't think that they are anywhere near the class of the East.
I agree that they're not maybe the class of the East right now. But if I was the coach of the Hawks, I would play Porzingis at the 4 and play Okongwu at the 5. And I would send Ricochet to the bench to be the 6th man to start the year. That's something that I would definitely consider, especially if, Porzingis not being that lob threat like you mentioned. Okongwu will fill that role. Porzingis can, step back and hit the threes and play from the mid-range. But defensively, playing the two of them, I think will give them a huge leg up. Kind of a mini version of what Cleveland has in Mobley and Allen. If you play Porzingis and Okongwu, I think that could be a very dominant defensive duo throughout the season. They're going to get every rebound known to mankind, and they're going to block a bunch of shots. So I think from a defensive perspective, this might be one of the best defensive teams in the league outside of Trae Young. Like, this might be one of the top to bottom best defensive teams in the league. And I think that will help them a lot in the Eastern Conference. But again, they have to push the right buttons because Porzingis is not the same player he was 5 years ago. He's a lot older, a lot slower, and he plays a very different game. So those are my thoughts on Atlanta. Anything else you want to add before we switch to a different team?
Yeah, but like you said, that's the issue I have with Atlanta, though, and I have with Porzingis. He is older and he is a lot slower. And if you play him at the 4, is he fast enough to keep up when teams go small and play a 3 at the 4? I don't think he is at this point in his career, so I disagree with your take there. I don't think the Hawks are going to be elite defensively, especially with Trae Young still being the centerpiece of the team. I think that's a department where they're going to struggle. But to speak about a great defensive team in the East, let's talk about the Orlando Magic and the big move that they made, trading 4 first-round picks for Desmond Bane. Max, I want to get your thoughts on that because that is a hefty price to pay for a player that has never made an All-Star game in his career.
So when I wrote down most underrated moves, I also wrote down most overrated move, and that was this one. I think there's one of these 3 players is getting the boot. And my gut is telling me that it's Franz Wagner soon. I think Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero have had troubles coexisting. They're the same player to me. Elite downhill scorer with above average ball handling and above average passing for men of their size. But neither one of them can shoot the three at a high level, and neither one of them can play point guard at a high level, I would say. And I think the addition of Desmond Bane probably signals that they're going to give it one more year to see if the three of them can coexist. And my gut is telling me they're not. And I think they essentially traded 4 first-round picks and Franz Wagner, essentially, for Desmond Bane. Because I just don't see this working. I think on paper, it is a very good trade. I like that they were aggressive and they were making a move to get better. I think that shows an ownership that is trying to get better, and I always appreciate that, as opposed to sitting on your picks and drafting players that might not pan out. I like that they went out and got a guy that's a proven number 2 or 3 option on a playoff team. I like that. But my favorite move by Orlando was picking up Tyus Jones to fill that point guard role that we've already mentioned they have not been able to fill. Tyus Jones is a guy that can get all these playmakers, all these scorers the ball in spots that they need to. It allows Jalen Suggs to play a little bit more off the ball. It will allow Desmond Bane to catch and shoot. It will allow Paolo to play more in the post, which I think is a part of his game that hasn't even been really defined yet, and I think he could be a dominant post player. So the Desmond Bane trade to me is exciting, but I'm more excited to see them without Franz Wagner, if that makes sense.
See, this is another take where I disagree with you. I am very high on the tandem of Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero. I mean, we've seen teams succeed with 2 star forwards, and the Boston Celtics built that template, succeeding with 2 elite scoring forwards. And yes, they have to put the right pieces around them. And like you said, the most underrated move I had this offseason was actually Tyus Jones to the Magic. That I am in agreement with you. Tyus Jones, over his entire career, basically, has made a career out of the assist-turnover ratio. His is always among the highest, if not the highest in the league. He usually has 3 or 4 assists for every turnover he has, which is incredible numbers for anybody and much needed for a lead point guard. That's something the Magic have lacked, and that has been their biggest hole for as long as the Magic have been contenders for. Jalen Suggs is a great on-ball defender, and he can get buckets when he needs to, but he hasn't shown the facilitation needed to have that lead guard role. I think that is the role that Tyus Jones can serve very well, whether it's off the bench or maybe he works his way into the starting lineup. Maybe Jalen Suggs will be put at the 6th man. But Franz Wagner is 24 years old, if I have that right, and Paolo Banchero is 22, 23? I mean, this is still a very young pairing. Paolo's only going to his 4th year in the league, and he missed most of year 3 due to injury. He didn't get that time to coalesce with Franz Wagner. So this is a crucial year, but I don't think this is a do-or-die year for the Magic. I think they're still willing to give their young players time to develop, especially not having their first-round picks. They only have incentive to win. They're stuck with the core they have. They don't have the flexibility to make any more moves. And I don't think trading Franz would move the needle forward. And that's what the Magic are trying to do right now. They're not in a position where they can elect for a rebuild.
Yeah, a couple of things on that. I didn't try to give the impression that this is a do-or-die season. I just think that Orlando, the trade, let me put it this way. The duo in Boston coexists because they do a lot of things great. Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero do not do a lot of things great. They do a couple of things great, like play defense and rebound and attack the rim.
Yeah, but they're young.
But they're the same exact player. And it's hard to build a team around 2 versions of the same player when there's other players at their position that are better. And again, I'm only talking about Franz here because I think Paolo is amazing. And he's going to be a top 10 player in the league for a long time. But Franz, here's my advice to Franz Wagner: to stay in Orlando, shoot threes. Learn how to shoot threes and keep being an elite defender, and you will have a role on any team. Franz Wagner cannot pass the ball like Jason Tatum in Boston. He cannot dribble the ball like Jason Tatum in Boston. He cannot shoot the 3 like Jason Tatum in Boston. Jason Tatum does all of those things exceptionally well that allows Jaylen Brown to play off the ball. Paolo and Franz don't work in tandem. It's much more of an isolated unit. And if you watch them at all last year, one possession Franz would bring the ball up and he'd try to score. And next possession they would just trade and give it to Paolo. There was no flow in their offense. And that might be a coaching thing. That might not just be the two of them, and Desmond Bane might help with that. But I just don't see that as a future long-term plan to have that work. Like, iso ball is not dead, but it's gone. I think the Warriors and a lot of these other teams, the Thunder, they move the ball, they play fast. Orlando did not do that last year, and that's because of the two players that they have built around so far, like to play slow and methodical, and they play downhill. They don't play fast. They don't get others involved. That's just my opinion, and I think Desmond Bane was essentially them telling Franz that you're like, three's a crowd. It is, and Franz is the odd one out in my opinion.
So who would you pick as an ideal replacement for Franz Wagner if the Magic were to decide to move on from him?
I don't think it's one player that can replace Franz. I think you would need to trade him in a way that you get back multiple assets. So whether that be picks, whether that be players, I think the Magic lack shooting. So what if you traded him to Dallas for Klay Thompson and Derek Lively and a couple picks? I think that would make Orlando. I don't want to say yes. I think that would make Orlando better in the long term. Maybe this season they wouldn't be as good, but in the long term plans of Paolo Banchero's career, because that is what Orlando is talking about right now, that would make them better. I don't love what they have at center, by the way. We haven't talked about that. Wendell Carter Jr. is not a top 15 center in the league, in my opinion. And getting a guy like Lively to throw in that rotation, or Gafford, or any of the centers not named Anthony Davis that the Mavericks have, trade for Klay, or trade for Hardaway, or trade for any of these veteran three-point shooters. Look what Malik Beasley did on the Pistons, right? Get someone like that on Orlando with a big man and a couple picks to replace Franz Wagner, and I think that team does improve exponentially. As Paolo continues to develop and he continues to become a better playmaker and a better shooter in general, with the addition of Desmond Bane, I also think a point guard would help. Tyus Jones is good, but he's definitely not the long-term answer. So maybe you use one of those picks to draft your future point guard to pair with Paolo. That's just kind of my long-term thinking. I think the Magic are going to be really good this year. I think they're going to be a top 4 seed in the East. I think they're going to host the first round of the playoffs, and they'll probably win a playoff round this year. But long-term, I fail to wrap my head around Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero together winning an NBA championship. I just can't see that.
That's fair. And I think the Magic agree with you. I think they were going for that shooter role when they were trading for Desmond Bane. I just don't know about the cost of 4 first-round picks. I think mortgaging your future for a player that hasn't had that many individual accolades was a bit much. But if it works, if it gets the Magic playoff success, something that their franchise has lacked for a long time, I don't think their front office will be complaining.
Yeah, I think
any other Eastern Conference teams that you'd like to talk about?
Yes, there are a couple more, but one thing on Orlando, I think the thought was there when getting Bane, but maybe the execution was not spot on. And that's something that they'll have to move on with. And, maybe we could be wrong. Maybe Orlando's going to win the championship this year, but I don't see that happening. The other team I wanted to talk about really quick that we end up talking about pretty much every year when discussing the NBA, and that's the Miami Heat. I don't know what to expect from the Miami Heat, but I love that they got Norman Powell, and I'm just going to throw that in there real quick. Norman Powell seems like the perfect player for Miami. A 15 to 20 point per game scorer that doesn't need the ball in his hands every possession, that will at least make effort on defense. Yeah, I think he's going to be great in Miami. And he was a borderline all-star last year, if I'm not mistaken, and I think he's going to repeat that production this year.
Yeah, one more team I want to harp on the East before we move on to the West. is the Boston Celtics, and I want to talk about more about what they lost and what they gained. The Boston Celtics appear to be not throwing in the towel, but accepting that they're not winning a championship this year. I mean, they were desperate to get under that second apron in the salary cap. They shed Kristaps Porzingis, they shed Drew Holiday, and that should offer them future financial flexibility. But this was very surprising for me when we were talking about just last offseason how the Boston Celtics appear to have a dynasty in the making with these two young star forwards in Tatum and Brown. It didn't look like anybody in the East would be able to compete with them for years. Now, when 1 year later, look where they're at now. They were almost sellers this offseason. They didn't make any notable free agent acquisitions aside from maybe Anthony Simons to move the needle, and that really depends on if Anthony Simons can develop in Boston, which he didn't very well in Portland. But it's the Boston Celtics road to where they are now has just been very surprising to me. It's not where I thought they would be. It's not how I thought I'd be talking about the Celtics last year. And it's going to be interesting to see just how far the Celtics will fall down the standings this year.
Yeah, I see Boston this year as more of a reload versus a rebuild. They're not going to blow it all up, but they're going to punt this season away.
No, absolutely not.
And I think that's smart. Your franchise player is going to be out for 95% of the season, best case scenario, that he doesn't miss the entire season. And I think that Boston will fall, but I still think they're going to be competitive, and that's just because of the culture that Joe Mazzulla has. And I'm really excited to see Jaylen Brown this year be a number one. Because what if Jaylen Brown just goes out there and throws himself in the MVP conversation?
Yeah, that's something we haven't seen from Jaylen Brown throughout his career. We
And
haven't seen him have that number one option.
And we know he's capable of putting up 28 to 32 points a game throughout a season. The only problem is that he plays with Jason Tatum, a guy who also takes 25 shots a night. 25 shots a night from Jason Tatum are now going to be distributed to all these guys. And I think Jaylen Brown this year could prove to the league that, if Tatum gets hurt again, or if one team wants to trade for me to be the number one, I can be that guy. And I'm really excited to watch Jaylen Brown this year. I'm not going to say it's a prove it year because we know he's one of the best two-way players in the league. He's already won a finals MVP. But I think this, personally for him, is a very cool opportunity to just show the world how truly special Jaylen Brown is.
Obviously, you never wish injury on a player. I'm sure Brown would much rather have Tatum on his side this year. But looking at it from an individual standpoint, yeah, I completely agree. Jaylen Brown has his first opportunity to be the number one option for the Celtics. And I don't think he's going to work his way into MVP conversations. It isn't out of the question if the Celtics can maintain the same level of success that they've had over the years. But they're going to be one of the more interesting teams to follow. How they approach this almost punt it year. It's very similar to what the Warriors did in 2020 when they lost Kevin Durant and Steph got hurt earlier in the year. Clay was out for that year. This kind of feels like those same vibes, but not to that extreme because they haven't been plagued with injuries to the rest of the core yet. But the Celtics, as long as Tatum recovers from injury, they'll be right back in contention in 2026, 2027.
Completely agree with that. And with that said, we're going to move to the West now. And because you just mentioned the Warriors, I'll talk about my favorite team real quick, who has done diddly squat in free agency. They have not made a single roster move of any importance this offseason. Now, the good news is that they have a decent roster. The bad news is that they still don't have a center, and that Steph and Jimmy Butler are a great duo. But besides them, I'm scared for the roster, and it looks like they're going to be another bottom six playoff play-in Western Conference team this year that has to go on the road and win a first-round series, go on the road and win a second-round series to make the Western Conference Finals. But I have been hearing rumors, and these are far out there rumors, that LeBron could be linked to Golden State. And this is something that I think ever since the Olympics last summer, 2024, I think the world truly realized how much LeBron and Steph love playing together. We've known their professional rivalry. We know that they are close off the court, but I think in Paris, They showed that they truly do enjoy playing with each other. And I'm not going to say it's happening because, again, these rumors are so far fetched. And the Lakers, I don't think, would ever trade LeBron. I think this would be a free agency move. However, I've heard it, and it would be awesome to see, even if it's a half a season of Steph and LeBron playing together and trying to conquer the Western Conference in the playoffs. Talk about the views the NBA would get if that were true.
Mm-hmm.
Like, LeBron and Steph as the 8 seed going up against the Thunder in the first round. Could you imagine, like, the views of that first round series?
That is story. Adam Silver could not script it better himself.
That's going 7. I don't know who would win, but that's probably going 7 just because that's how it works. They'd milk you for those views every game. But now I want to talk about a team that actually did something this offseason, and it is the Denver Nuggets, who I think going into the season are the second best team in the West. And a lot of people who follow the NBA may be giving that edge to Houston. But after Houston's disappointing postseason last year, I don't know if Kevin Durant is enough to put them over the team with the best player in the league. So, Alex, after OKC, which team in the West do you see being the second best team heading into the season based on free agency?
Well, we haven't agreed on much this episode, but this we are absolutely in agreement of. I believe the Denver Nuggets are the second best, and I believe that they are the true, complete winners of the offseason. I mean, they handled this about as well as you could have. After they've been criticized in recent off seasons for not building around Nikola Jokic, for this generational talent who has won 3 MVPs in the last 5 years. And he won a ring for them in 2023, and they just continue to run it back with essentially the same roster. A few additions here and there on the bench, but nothing really groundbreaking. And we've seen other teams in the West pass them up. Well, that was not the case this offseason, because they went out and traded away Michael Porter Jr., who, yes, he was battling with injury, but had a really, really bad playoffs, for a much better, in my opinion, replacement at that position in Cameron Johnson. The signings of Tim Hardaway and re-signing Bruce Brown for the team give them much needed depth. And the weakness around the Nuggets for so long has been the backup center position behind Nikola Jokic. They never had a reliable player to replace him when they had to rest him. Well, Jonas Valanciunas, now that he's finally off from that EuroLeague contract saga, is that perfect player. A 7-foot animal of a man who will still give you a double-double every night in 20 minutes. I don't think you could have picked a better player to take those non-Jokic minutes. I think he's the perfect center to keep the Nuggets afloat, both offensively and defensively. So the Nuggets I am very high on, but I want to talk about Kevin Durant because, first of all, I'm surprised that we even made it this far in the episode without talking about that marquee. That was the big bang of the offseason, right? That was the big move. And you don't think Kevin Durant moves the needle on the Rockets? I completely disagree. When you look at the Rockets' first-round series with the Warriors last year, the issue is not defensively. They did a great job for the most part, containing, as well as a team can contain Steph. The Rockets did that pretty well. They contained Jimmy Butler. He never had the signature playoff Butler moment. What stopped them was their offense. There were multiple games where they scored only in the double figures, and you're not going to win playoff games like that, especially against a team as experienced and playoff seasoned as the Warriors. Kevin Durant is a complete needle mover on offense, maybe the best needle mover on offense in the league. He's age 38 and will still give you 25 to 30 a night on insane efficiency. His mid-range is still as unguardable as ever. His three-pointer is still as lethal as ever. And while he's maybe lost a step or two in terms of explosiveness, his shooting isn't going anywhere. You're not going to block a 7-footer with the ball skills and the handling and the ability to rise up over your defender like Kevin Durant. That is so needle moving on offense for the Rockets, and I think losing Jalen Green was almost addition by subtraction. Jalen Green was primarily a shot chucker in his Houston days. He was very inefficient, and losing him, yes, Kevin Durant is going to get a lot of those shots and make a lot more, basically be more efficient with them. But those Jalen Green shots are also going to get distributed to the Alperen Şengüns, to the Amen Thompsons, to the Tari Eastons, to the young players on their team who I mean, they could always use more reps. They could always use more minutes. And now that they have playoff experience and they've added a season two-time champion in Kevin Durant, I think the sky is truly the limit for the Houston Rockets this year. I think they will be. I'm not going to say the second best team, but I think they might be the biggest threat for the Thunder just in terms of how they match up.
Interesting. So I'm convinced at this point that you just try and find anything to disagree with me on. Because what I said was
Okay,
that
well, we're in agreement on the Nuggets.
what I said was that Houston and the Kevin Durant move doesn't move the needle past Denver as the second best team in the West. Not that it doesn't move the needle for me at all. And I think that Kevin Durant does move the needle for them as a much bigger threat come the postseason. Houston had a great regular season last year, and I don't anticipate their record improving by much in the regular season. Being the number 2 seed in the West doesn't happen by accident. I mean, their young core is truly special, and Kevin Durant will help them when it matters. And I agree with everything you said about Jalen Green. Addition by subtraction, I think that's a great point. He was just not a good fit for what they were doing last year and what the plans obviously were for this offseason. He was the odd man out, so to speak, for Houston. As for second best team in the league, though, I think Denver matches up significantly better with Oklahoma City for a couple of reasons. One, they have the best player in the world. And two, I think the additions they made help defensively match Oklahoma City's versatility a lot better than Houston does. Amen Thompson's great, but Şengün doesn't really move me on defense. Van Vliet does not move me on defense. And I think Denver, as a unit, will be able to contain Oklahoma City's offense a little bit more. But while we're focused on Houston, the sky's absolutely the limit for the Rockets. Kevin Durant will do everything in his power to prove to the league that he can win a championship as the clear-cut number one option. I just have a little bit of doubts about that, and this is, I think, my Warriors bias kicking in about people saying that Kevin Durant saved the Warriors and how Kevin Durant was the alpha on that team. But if Steph Curry didn't relegate himself to the number 2 role, I don't think they would have won back-to-back championships. That's my Warriors bias kicking in. But Kevin Durant, yes, stats-wise was the number 1 option on those teams. But I think everyone in the building and everyone against them knew who the true number 1 alpha was on the court. And I'm just going to say that. So that's my only doubt is at this stage in his career, is Kevin Durant good enough to compete with Jokic? Is he good enough to compete with Shea? Is he good enough to compete with Steph? And all the other teams in the Western Conference, that those alphas are absolute dogs. And they've proven that they can win championships on their own. Şengün doesn't move that for me, and neither does Durant. Whoever you think the alpha is there. I struggle with that. And on the flip side of this trade, I want to talk about Phoenix for a little bit. I think they actually did great with this trade. Dylan Brooks, say what you want about him. He's a good basketball player. He's annoying and he's kind of cringy like 80% of the time. But he's good at basketball, and there's a reason he's in the NBA. I think he's a good fit in Phoenix. Jalen Green, again, the jury's still out on Jalen Green in Phoenix. And another big signing they had was Mark Williams, trying to fill in the center position that they haven't really been able to fill since they lost DeAndre Ayton. Phoenix, to me, is again, like Golden State, a borderline play-in, playoff team for me. Again, they just have to gel, and they could be a top 6 team in the West, and if they don't, then they could miss the play-in. Like, who knows? But that was another team that I wanted to talk about just a little bit on the flip side of the coin. What are your thoughts on Phoenix, and do you think they won the trade, lost the trade, or it was kind of fair?
I am much lower on Phoenix than you are. I think they are the clear-cut losers in that trade. I do not like the pairing of Devin Booker and Jalen Green at all. I think they're two very similar players, ball-dominant scorers who, to make an impact on the game, they need the ball in their hands. And unfortunately for the Suns, there's only one to go around. It's a lot of the same issues they had in the Big Three era with Beal, Durant, and Booker. and I don't think Jalen Green is an upgrade over any of those players. Not even Beal at this stage in his career. Um, we're gonna get it. We're obviously gonna talk about more of these teams in depth when we do our conference predictions. But a bit of a spoiler on that: I am not as high on the Suns as I think you are. I do not think they will sniff the play-in game this year in the
Wow.
vaunted Western Conference.
Wow. I just think Devin Booker's too good. Um, I just think he can carry a team to 40 wins. That gets you in the play in every year. So
See,
he can carry you to
I'm gonna
40 and
disagree with that.
42. He can carry you to 40 and 42, I think.
We he wasn't making the playoffs early in his career until they got Chris Paul.
Yeah, but he wasn't this version. Chris Paul and Monty Williams transformed Devin Booker into a top 10 player in the league. I think we can both agree on that. Before Chris Paul came, Devin Booker was not the stone cold killer that he has been really the last couple seasons. And I think the expectations for Phoenix the last couple years were just too high. And I think now that they're lower, I expect them to meet, if not exceed, those low expectations.
Okay, that's fair. I want to talk about what I think is the biggest move of the offseason. And it's not a signing. Well, it is. It's a re signing. And that is the Lakers extending Luka Doncic. There was a lot of talk in February after the Lakers made the trade of their ability to re sign Doncic, whether they mortgaged Anthony Davis for a year rental of Luka. Well, the 3-year max contract Luka signed this offseason guarantees that he is a Laker at least for the near future, which is absolutely huge for the organization. Luka will make the Lakers contenders year in and year out, regardless of the pieces around him. He has shown he can make it work. He is the best offensive hub in the NBA right now. He can score, he can create, he can facilitate, and I don't. Okay, maybe aside from Nikola Jokic, but I think there's still an argument that Luka Doncic could be argued as a better offensive weapon. Regardless, not the point here. The point is this extension keeps the Lakers in championship conversations, which was the Lakers' entire goal for the short and the long term. And extending him only guarantee that they will remain in those conversations. And I'm very excited to see the Luka era. I know it was a bit of a weird year, a bit of the weird last few months of the season, seeing him in yellow. But now he's had a full offseason with them. He seems accustomed to LA, and he seems ready to prove to the world that these fat rumors that Nico Harrison slandered him with are completely fabricated. Very, very not maybe not even a dark horse. I think Luka Doncic could be a very viable MVP candidate this year.
Oh, I agree with that. Luka is amazing. And a quick connection to what we talked about LeBron earlier. This 3-year contract for Luka gives me a sign that LeBron's got 3 years left, assuming he stays with the Lakers. And in 3 years' time, if the Lakers don't win a championship, I think they will stick it with Luka for the future. However, what happens if the Lakers win a championship in the next 3 years and they decide to let go of Luka and LeBron retires and just completely rebuild? That could be an option for LA. I don't know if it's the smartest option, but this 3-year contract I think gives them a lot of flexibility. In 3 years, with the retirement of LeBron, you can either pivot to Luka or you can pivot to just completely rebuilding in 3 years when LeBron retires. That is something that I caught my eye because when you have a player like Luka and you're negotiating with a player like Luka, wouldn't you want to re-sign him for 5 or 6 years as opposed to 3?
Well, yes, but the 3 years kicks in after this next year. So he's playing on his original Dallas contract for this upcoming year, and then that 3-year extension kicks in. So essentially 4 years out. Um, I do agree because they had Luca's bird rates. They acquired him in the trade, so they could have extended him for 5 years. Maybe Luca chose to go for less, so he can take a bigger pay raise in the future. I'm not sure the Lakers' reasoning behind that. However, the Lakers will not rebuild. They will not give away Luka at the end of these 3 years. Rebuilding is not what the Lakers do. They had that weird stretch in the late career of Kobe Bryant, and then rebuild, and then following Kobe Bryant's career where they were missing the playoffs. But aside from that, the Lakers are branded as contenders. The Lakers before that weird stretch, they had like 5 or 6 missed playoff appearances in their entire franchise history, which is absolutely insane. But the Lakers, that's what they do. They acquire superstars and they keep them. They don't always make them happy. They're not always going to win. But if there's one thing you can guarantee, is that the Lakers will have a star on their team or a player that they hope will be a star. They're not getting rid of Luka anytime soon. I expect Luka to finish his career with the Los Angeles Lakers.
Wow. That's a bold take, seeing as that 1 year ago we would both say we'd expect him to finish his career as a Dallas Maverick. So that is a very interesting take. And another interesting take you had was about the offensive hub. I think Jokic is far and away the best. But what about the reigning NBA champion SGA? Do you think Luka's a better offensive talent than SGA? Or offensive hub?
No, playmaking absolutely, and I think that's a huge criteria in the offensive hub term. Jokic, yeah, I'm not going to lie. I completely forgot about Jokic when I said that. So Jokic is by far and away the best offensive hub in the league. But Luka, I mean, if you could pick an offensive hub as a guard, non-Jokic players, you can't go much better than Luka Doncic. Shea, great scorer, all-time great scorer, but I don't think the playmaking is up to par as it is with the players like Doncic and Jokic.
Okay, but do you think I think SGA's like as much of a better passer Luka is than Shea. I think Shea is that much better of a scorer than Luka. So doesn't that kind of even out or no?
No, I disagree there. I think Luka is just as good. Luka could average 35 points a game if he wanted to. He averaged just last season, his last full season with the Mavericks, he averaged 33 a game. That's what Shea averaged this year in his MVP year.
I think Shea, what people don't talk about him enough is his efficiency. Luka scores 33 points on 30 shots. Shea scores 30 points on 18 shots. And that's a big difference. And I think Luka has not played with a star other than LeBron these last couple months. He has not really played with a second star. Kyrie, yes, but Luka was the clear alpha. With Shea playing with Jalen Williams and Chet, I mean, there's shots to go around there. I don't know. I think Shea just throughout the course of a 4-quarter game, he does not take bad shots. And there are times where I watch Luka and I see him chuck up a step back three, and I'm just thinking to myself, what are you doing? Like, I don't know. I think Shea gets a lot of hate for the foul baiting too, which Luka does the same thing. And Shea, how do I want to put this? I just don't think he takes bad shots. Like, he is extremely efficient, similar to Kevin Durant. Like, Kevin Durant does not take bad shots. Luka Doncic, from time to time, takes bad shots, and I think that harms the offense.
All right, so I have stats pulled up for 2 players. Player A averaged 32.7 points, 5 rebounds a game, 6.5 assists, shooting 51.9% from the field and 37.5 from 3. Player B is at 33.9 points a game, essentially 34, 9.2 rebounds, 10 assists, shooting 49% from the floor and 38% from 3. Player A is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's MVP season, and player B is Luka Doncic's 2023-24 season, where he finished 3rd in the MVP voting and drug Dallas to the finals. If we're talking about scoring, in terms of points per game, Luka has a better scoring. If we're talking about efficiency, Luka not only shoots the 3 better, but his field goal percentage as a whole is not very far off from what we consider to be one of the most efficient scorers in the league. And his assists clear Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, even in his MVP year. So if we're talking offensive hub, if we're talking scoring, if we're talking playmaking, I would still give Luka the edge over Shai.
Wow. Shai, coming off one of the best guard seasons of all time, winning every single award you could possibly imagine. I'm shocked, truly, because if I have to draft one of them for my squad, I'm taking Shai 10 times out of 10, and I'm not thinking twice about it.
I would take Luka, honestly, still at this point in their careers. I think I would still take Luka.
I know it's early, but
Shai is
one of them has a championship and one of them doesn't, and I think that has a lot to do with who's leading the charge.
One of them played for the Thunder that won 67 regular season games.
Mm-hmm.
One of them plays for the Mavericks that trades away their superstars at any given notice.
Well, Luca plays for the
I mean,
Lakers, not the Mavericks. And
okay, he used to play for the Mavericks. I was
and
talking about when he made his
SGA
finals
had the
appearance.
youngest roster in the league that he led to a championship. So
Yeah,
I think there's pros and
yeah,
cons to every roster in the league. And if Luca is better than Shea, the roster construction around him should mean less.
yes, but we're we're not we're not talking about Shea Gilgeous-Alexander dragging the Thunder to an NBA championship. I mean, he had great help from Jalen Williams. He had a 40-point game in the finals. Chet, he struggled in the finals, but he was definitely a threat in the first round against the Grizzlies. And even their complementary pieces, Caruso had an incredible playoffs. AJ Mitchell off the bench had a great playoffs. Lou Dort was an incredible defender. Luca, when he made the finals, his best player was Kyrie Irving, no slouch, but his third best player was a rookie Derek Lively. That was a complete carry job by Doncic to get an undermanned Dallas squad to the finals.
I agree
That is why I'm
100%.
picking him over Shea. I
Yeah,
think Luca's ceiling is much higher than Shea's. If you were to put Luca in Shea's position, I think the Thunder would win 74 games. I think they would break the Warriors' record.
really? With the defense that he plays and the injuries
Okay,
that he
between
has?
70 and 74 wins, but I think the Thunder would be even better with Luca than they would with Shea.
Wow. Wow, 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 wow. All right. We'll put a pin in that because I'm sure we're going to talk more player rankings and MVP discussions. So we'll talk about this later because this has kind of gotten sidetracked from our offseason review. Alex, are there any other teams you want to discuss before we get to the blind ranking?
Teams, no, but I think we should talk about the draft a little bit prior to the blind rankings because we had a generational talent in the draft fall to a very unexpected landing spot for a team that we haven't talked about. Well, we just did talk about them, but we were talking about a past iteration in the Dallas Mavericks. I mean, they made the shock of all shock moves last year, trading Luca, surrounding Kyrie Irving with a new star in Anthony Davis, and now adding Cooper Flag to that tandem. The Dallas should make Dallas one of the more interesting teams to follow this year. What do you think Dallas's ceiling is in the Western Conference?
To make the finals? I think that's their.
Really?
Yeah. If okay, it hinges on
Wow.
Kyrie Irving's health. Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis are two former NBA champions who are now paired with the best prospect since Zion Williamson.
Wemby?
Mm, yeah, okay, Wemby, sure.
You're not.
Sure, Wemby, sure. But Cooper Flag, I would say, is just as hyped up as Wemby. I think as a prospect, they are equal. Um,
I'm going to disagree with that, but that's not the point.
as a prospect, I'm not talking about as a player. I'm talking about as a prospect. How much hype he got coming into the league? Yes, Cooper Flag
Okay, that's
just
good. That's fair.
is just as hyped up as Wembanyama was whenever he got drafted 1 or 2 years ago. That is, I would agree with that.
Yeah, but you think this Dallas Mavericks squad is capable of making the finals? You think if they're
Oh,
capable
you
of
said their
beating out every other
ceiling.
team in the West?
Yes, best case scenario, Kyrie comes back. Anthony Davis and Cooper Flag could be, I'm not going to say they will, could be the best big man duo in the league this year. No doubt in my mind. That could be the best 4 or 5 in the
Flag is a
league.
rookie. Wow.
That could be the best 4 or 5 in the league. I'm serious about that. And with Kyrie's ability to score on anybody in the league, Jason Kidd's a good head coach. He's led a team to the finals before. He's played in NBA finals before. Yes, best case scenario, Dallas wins the Western Conference. That's their ceiling. Their floor is to lose in the play-in because Kyrie doesn't come back. Cooper Flag is not as good as we think he is, and they lose the 8-9 play-in game or whatever it is. That's their floor, I think. But their ceiling, yes, they could be a top 3 team in the West. They can get a favorable playoff schedule, and they could win the Western Conference. Absolutely.
Yeah, I do not see Dallas being Western Conference contenders. At least not this year. I think Flag is still going to need a. Yeah, he's not coming in like Wemby with the physical just dominance. I mean, Wemby, we're comparing the prospects. Wemby was 7'4" guy who could do anything in terms of skill. Flag I mean, this isn't a knock on his skill, but he's no 7'4", right? He's an average 6'6", so he doesn't have this out of the world asset to him that will immediately be groundbreaking as soon as he enters the league. He's going to need a couple years to get polished. And I don't think that's a bad thing for the Mavericks. I don't think that Kyrie Irving is going to be 100% this year, even if he comes back as he's working back for his ACL tear. So I think Dallas's main goal this year is just to get Flag integrated and getting comfortable working with another star such as Anthony Davis next to him. I mean, I think if Dallas can get to the playoffs and have a competitive first-round series without Kyrie Irving, I think they would consider the season a win because their expectations next year would be sky high.
Yeah, I think you're confusing the term expectations from ceiling. Expectations, I don't think they expect to win the West this year. I think they expect to probably win a playoff series. But ceiling to me is like best case scenario. If all the dominoes fall correctly, what is the roster like? What can they do? And I think the ceiling, the ceiling for half the team in the leagues could win the championship. Like that's what a ceiling is. Like, yes, half the teams in the league could win the championship if all the dominoes fall their way. Yes, absolutely.
There are, I would say, no more than 5 teams with championship aspirations this year.
Yes, aspirations, yes, but ceiling is different than expectations and aspirations. That's what I'm trying to get you to understand. They're two completely different things. Ceiling, in my mind, is like potential, right? And aspirations are reality. Expectations are reality.
Well, yeah, sure, but even at the ceiling, if everything were to go the Mavericks' way, I still don't think they're getting past the Nuggets, the Thunder, or the Rockets. But, I think those 3 teams, no matter what happens with the Mavericks this year, will beat them in a 7-game series.
You might call me crazy for this, but a healthy Kyrie and a healthy Anthony Davis with Cooper Flag is a better big 3 than what Houston has. And I'm gonna say that right. I'm gonna say that right now.
Wow.
Şengün, Kevin Durant, and whoever you want to put at 3. Amen Thompson, Van Vliet, whoever you want to throw at 3. A healthy Kyrie and a healthy Anthony Davis paired with Cooper Flag is a better big 3 than Houston.
I mean, healthy is a very important part of that.
It is. It is very important.
Even so, I don't think Cooper Flag will be developed enough his rookie year. I don't think he'll be as polished as a talent like Wembanyama was his rookie year.
But he could be. The potential is there for Cooper Flag to win Finals MVP this year. I'm telling you, like, that's what people are saying. That's the hype. That's like.
Yeah, I'm not buying that for a second.
Yeah, and you don't have to buy it, but I'm just telling you that's how my brain works when you say words like ceiling and potential. I think best case scenario and what this player could be, right? Like, that's all. I think there's 4 to 5 contenders in the league, yes. But how many teams can realistically win the championship? 12 to 15, probably.
Yeah, I guess we just have different ways of seeing that.
So what happens, like in my opinion, what happens if Dallas plays Houston in the semifinals, right? And Oklahoma City plays Denver in the other semifinal? You only have to play 2 of those 3 teams to get to the finals. You don't have to play all 3 of them. Or let's say
that still involves beating Houston in the first
place. Let's say Houston loses in the first round again.
The next round.
Let's say Houston loses in the first round again. Then Oklahoma City and Denver play each other. You only got to play one of them. Those are like the chips that are falling in place. You just can't predict that kind of stuff. You can't determine it now. You just have to wait and see what the season holds. So, yes, the Mavericks' ceiling this year is to win the West. That's my opinion. And like I said, it hinges on health. Can Kyrie and Anthony Davis stay healthy? Because if they can, I mean, that's a dynamic duo in itself. And then you add a 2-way player in Cooper Flag that is young, hungry, and talented. With a coach like Jason Kidd, they can win the West. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think we talked about Cooper Flag enough. We now know that he's a generational prospect. What other draft picks have really intrigued you from the 2025 draft class?
To be honest, it's flag, and the local networks, the national networks have just jammed Cooper Flag down our throats that I don't really have any. If I had to put a sleeper out there, that a guy that I'm excited to watch, I don't know. Dylan Harper could be exciting, but I'm less excited that they have De'Aaron Fox. So, I mean, I don't know about that. Con Knipple doesn't excite me at all. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not as high in the rookie class this year as I think years past. What about you? Do you have any sleepers or exciting players to look out for?
Bit of a spoiler on my rookie of the year pick, but it's not Cooper Flag. My rookie of the year pick is VJ Edgecombe, and I think he's going to emerge as Cooper Flag may emerge as the better long-term player, but within the next 3 years, I think Edgecombe will be the best player in this draft. I mean, we saw a story on draft night how his mother supplied them with it. He lived off a generator for electricity for 7 years. His mom worked 3 jobs to keep him afloat and keep him in a house. He has just that hunger in him that we don't see a lot of top athletes anymore in any sport really have because of the rise in popularity of AAU and social media and whatnot. Edgecombe, I think, is going to be an immediate hit for the 76ers, much like Jared McCain was last year. Now, the depth chart is a bit of an issue because you have Maxey and then you have Jared McCain ahead of him. But if Edgecombe can get consistent minutes, I think he has the tools to establish himself as an elite two-way guard by his rookie season. I could very well see him having a Donovan Mitchell type rookie season.
Yeah, Edgecombe had a great summer league too, which we didn't really talk about the summer league much, but he played like one game and dominated, and he just looked like a man amongst boys in the summer league. I think that Jared McCain, very similar to what we talked about Orlando, there's an odd man out, and it's not Maxey, right? It's not going to be Maxey. I think it's McCain. McCain had a great start to the rookie season last year, but if Edgecombe is what both of us think he is, McCain seems like a valuable trade asset for the Sixers come midseason, especially if Embiid is healthy and they want to make a run at the Eastern Conference Championship. I think McCain could be a valuable piece to pick up key rentals, picks, etc. Edgecombe excites me. I don't know if he would be my pick to be rookie of the year, but again, I don't want to spoil anything. I want to see more of him. I want to see more of him with Maxey, with Embiid, because you're looking at a dude right there that even if he's better than Jared McCain, right, which we don't know yet, they're probably on a level playing field right now. Even if he's better than Jared McCain, he's the third option on the Sixers at best, right? At least this season, right? So I don't know if the opportunity is going to be there, whereas a guy like Dylan Harper or Cooper Flag are going to be on teams where they just get the ball more. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. But he's definitely exciting, definitely has a lot of hype and potential surrounding him. And Philadelphia is another. I'm going to ask you a question. What is Philadelphia's ceiling this year?
Ceiling, if we're talking about best case scenario, Eastern Conference Finals.
Okay.
I don't think they can win the East, but I mean, I would still take teams like the Cavs over. I think the Cavs specifically match up very, very well with the Sixers in a theoretical Eastern Conference Finals matchup. But I think if everything goes well, Embiid stays healthy all year, Maxey also stays healthy and takes the leap on his All-Star season. You know, McCain stays healthy. There seems to be a common theme. Paul George also stays healthy. If all of that happens, a huge, huge if with the Philadelphia Sixers, I think they could emerge as a top-tier threat in the Eastern Conference Finals, or the Eastern Conference. I don't think they could emerge as the finalist, but
I agree. I think a theme in sports in general, not just basketball, is health is key. Teams that win championships are usually the teams that are healthy. Look at the Eagles last year in the NFL; they were healthy. Look at the Thunder last year in the NBA; they were healthy. They didn't have any major injuries to any significant game changers. So, with that being said, healthy teams are going to win championships. It's just a fact, and I think, myself included in this, I think I forget sometimes how really good Joel Embiid is when he's fully healthy. Like, You mentioned the Cavs as a matchup. If Embiid's fully healthy, he's given Jared Allen 25 to 30 a night. No problem, in my opinion. Like, and if you want to switch Mobley on him, cool. We'll just back him down and dunk on his ass. Like, he's as a team, I agree. Cleveland's a good matchup for Philadelphia, or a bad matchup, excuse me. But individually, like Embiid is so dominant, and I just forget that. So again, health is the key. He has to want to play. He has to want to get healthy. But yeah, I agree. Eastern Conference Finals / maybe winning the East is probably the ceiling for Philadelphia. Best case scenario this year. But yeah, that's pretty good. Anything else you want to talk about on the offseason recap?
One more rookie that I want to get involved, that I want to talk about a little bit before we get into the blind ranking, is a rookie that, aside from Cooper Flagg, was the most talked about, but not for all the right reasons. And this player being Ace Bailey. He had a lot of press surrounding him in the pre-draft process because he was refusing to work out for teams like the Philadelphia 76ers and the Charlotte Hornets, and even the Utah Jazz, who ended up drafting Bailey. He refused to work out for. He wanted to fall to a team like the Wizards or the Pelicans, where he'd be the certified first option from the jump start of his career and have the biggest opportunity to succeed. Now, he will have that same opportunity with the Utah Jazz, but not a lot of people were fans of how Bailey seemed to manipulate his way down the draft board. So I want to get your thoughts on that. What do you think of Ace Bailey and how he handled the draft? And do you think he could be in the Rookie of the Year? Well, we're not going to talk about ceilings or floors anymore because we have different definitions of that. But what are your expectations for Ace Bailey in his rookie year with the Utah Jazz?
You know, it's so funny you mention Ace Bailey because I forgot about him until you just mentioned him. I kid you not. And I think that's because when I heard about what he did in the draft, my first thought was that this kid just ended his career before it started. This kid, to me, seems like the type of player that would leave a good team in a good situation with a chance to win for a bag in 4 years. So if that's the case, and Ace Bailey is really good like he's supposed to be, and in 4 years he doesn't want to re-sign with Utah, he wants to go to, I don't know, Brooklyn, who's going to give him a bag. Is Brooklyn really going to want to pay a dude that won't work out for them all that money? I think this kid has signed himself up for a short NBA career. And the average length of professional careers is not that long to begin with, but it just seems like you screwed yourself. And I compare him a lot to what Shedeur Sanders did with the interviewing process. The only difference is Shedeur Sanders learned his lesson when he didn't get drafted till round 5. Ace Bailey was still drafted in the top 5 of the NBA draft. His ego is still high. And he, to me, is just, he has a lot of growth as a human being to do before he can be a successful NBA player. That's all I'm going to say about Ace Bailey.
Yeah. And talking strictly from a basketball standpoint, there were many rookies that outshined him in the summer league. I mean, he didn't contribute much for the Jazz in the summer league, and he was the first option there. So I can't imagine it's going to be much better when you're in the regular season and going against seasoned NBA players. So I am in agreement with you on there, which we haven't been in much this episode, but I am not high on Ace Bailey in his Rookie of the Year chances at all. I'm not as pessimistic about his NBA career. I think he does have the tools to emerge as a three-way scorer, which is incredibly valuable by all teams, regardless of his mentality. But you're right. The way that he handled it, he doesn't seem like a player that's willing to sacrifice. So a player that's willing to fit into a specific role on a team in order to win. He wants to be the first option, and if he's good enough to be the first option, great. But if he's not, then yeah, he's going to struggle to find a fit on an NBA contender in the middle and end of his career.
Yeah, I just think he's one humbling away from being a borderline all-star, but I just don't, with the way he handled himself in the draft, I just don't see how he can get over that hump in the foreseeable future. So that's my thoughts on him. And yeah, that should conclude our offseason recap. We're now going to get into the blind ranking, where I'll be conducting a 10-person blind ranking of current NBA players. Is that correct, Alex?
That current NBA players.
All right. I'm locked in, ready to rock.
Max? Yeah, you feeling ready for your first blind ranking of the season?
Yeah, this is about to be perfect. And now, okay,
Perfect. We love the early guarantees.
yeah. And before we start, you asked me a question earlier. I need to know where you found these players from. Don't tell me like how good they are or anything, but where did you find these players? A random generator that could give me G League borderline players?
Yes, random generator.
Okay,
I,
all
I
right.
did not pick this
All right,
myself.
all right,
Random
all right.
player generator.
All right, thank you. All right.
Okay, I will say I will give you a hint. There is at least one All-Star. I shuffled it a couple times until I got one All-Star.
That's it? Oh shit. Okay.
I said at least. It could be 5 All-Stars. Hell, it could be 10 All-Stars. But
Okay,
there is an All-Star. You're not going to get
There's not 10 All-Stars out of a
bench
random
players.
player generator. There's not 10 All-Stars. All right, I'm ready.
Well, I mean, with this first player, you are absolutely correct because his first player is New York Knicks legend Ariel Hukporti.
10. Never heard of him.
You've never. He was the Knicks backup center last year. You've never heard of Ariel Hukporti?
No, and neither has the 20 people that listen to this podcast. 10.
Okay, fair. All right, number 2, and this is a player whose NBA career has not gone as some have expected. This is Johnny Davis.
I remember watching him in college. He was actually quite exciting in college. And
He was a baller at Wisconsin.
he plays for Washington now, if I'm not mistaken. I think I'll get a player worse than him, but not too many. I'm going to throw him at 7. I don't love that.
7 for Johnny Davis.
I don't love that, but he's got some potential, and he was fun in college, so that's what I'm going to base that off of.
Well, I will say Johnny Davis was in the G League all of last year, so even Ariel Hukporti got NBA minutes.
Okay, I don't care.
Third player, we have Jayshawn Tate.
All right, he's a role player. We're moving up in the world, guys. We just got a role player in a blind ranking. Hallelujah. He's got to be better than Johnny Davis. I'm throwing him at 4. There's no way we get 4
for Jayshawn Tate.
There's no way we get 4 players better than Jayshawn Tate. There's no way. There's no way. I'm going 4. That might have been too low.
4.
That might have been too low.
Number 4, we have fellow Houston Rocket, Alperen Şengün.
All right, I'm contemplating 1 here. This guy, as much crap as I just talked about him on Houston, about how I don't think he's an alpha, compared to the other 9 guys on this list, he might be an alpha. So oh God, this is so hard. It's between 1 or 2, and it's I'm going 2. I'm going 2.
Alperen Şengün.
Yeah, I'm going 2. I'm going 2.
All right. 5th player on the list. We have a player traded last season to a contending team in DeAndre Hunter, now on the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Shit. Okay, so this is bad. I have to put him 3 because he's perfect between Şengün and Jayshawn Tate. However, I think Tate now may have been too high. I think he may have been too high, but that's okay. That's okay. Hunter at 3 between Şengün and Tate is a perfect spot for him, so I'm not too mad about that. But I'm hesitant right now. This is not great.
All right, our next player on the list is making you feel a little bit better. We have Ty Washington.
Great, 9, beautiful. That's just music to my ears. I don't even know what team Ty plays for. Sick name, by the way, but I don't know which team he plays for.
I think. I couldn't tell you either.
Yep. All right, 9.
Maybe the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, 9.
Maybe. I'm not sure either.
Maybe the Guangzhou Tigers. I mean, I don't know. I really don't know.
Got sent to China.
Yep.
Our next player on the list is Wizards legend Anthony Gill.
8. Definitely not better than Davis. Okay. This is bad now because if I get another absolute bum, he's got to go in the top 6 of this ranking. But honestly, the bottom 4 are so bad. Like, yeah, this is just, you just giving me crap.
All right. So right now we have number 1 open. We have number 5 open, number 6 open, and number 7 open. So a lot of places available in the middle.
I'm pretty sure I have Johnny Davis at 7. I think we only have 3 players left, if I'm taking notes correctly.
You're right. You have 1, 5, and 6. You are right.
Yeah,
you do have Davis.
Okay, I was making sure I didn't trip out or something.
No, you're correct. We have 1, 5, and 6 left.
All right.
Our next player, and I think I know where this guy's going to go. 2-time MVP, 1-time DPOY, 1-time champion, Giannis Antetokounmpo.
One. Yes, I made the right call with Şengün. Giannis, you're my king, my savior. You're going to lead Milwaukee all the way to the second round of the playoffs this year. I believe in you. Let's go, Giannis.
All the way to the second round.
High bar.
For the Bucks, that is improvement. I will love a second round finish from the Bucks this year.
High bar.
As a Bucks fan.
All right, I need some role players. Give me two role players
We got
right here.
2 more players at the number 5 and the number 6 slot. Next up, I don't know how you're gonna feel about this. We have Jarrett Allen.
Okay, he's definitely better than Tate. DeAndre Hunter, he's probably better than DeAndre Hunter, but honestly, that's whatever. He has to go 5. I don't think this next player will be worse than Jarrett Allen, so we'll go 5. I wish he was at least 4, probably 3, but what can you do?
You don't think this next player will be better than Jarrett Allen?
Yeah.
Well, I would hate to disappoint you, but your next player is Anthony Davis.
Yeah, okay, well, that's
And
just
that
rough.
means that
Bro
Anthony Davis
said at least one All-Star.
slotted.
I've got I have 2 NBA champions, and he hits me with the at least one All-Star.
That is at least one
Such
All-Star.
misleading information from my co-host. This guy just setting me up for failure here.
Hey, it's a blind rankings. You're set up for failure either way.
It is.
But
It is blind.
to recap, we have number 1, Giannis. Number 2, Alperen Şengün. Number 3, DeAndre Hunter. Number 4, Jae'Sean Tate. Number 5, Jarrett Allen. Number 6, Anthony Davis. Number 7, Johnny Davis. Number 8, Anthony Gill. Number 9, Ty Washington. And number 10, Ariel Hukporti.
In my mind, this was basically a 6-player ranking. In which case, I ranked Anthony Davis 6th.
Because you're taking Jae'Sean Tate over Anthony Davis?
Well, in this blind ranking, I am. I'm taking him over Jarrett Allen, too.
You know, you had number 1 right. You might have had the bottom 4 right. Everything in the middle needs to be changed.
I'm gonna say I got number 1 and number 2 right. I take Şengün number 2 on that list. I'd probably say that.
Şengün over AD.
It's a toss-up, but last year, yeah, Şengün was better than Anthony Davis last year. So I think you could argue that.
Yeah, that's fair. And for the first blind rankings of the year, it could have been worse. You could have had Giannis.
It could have been
anywhere
worse.
but 1.
Giannis at 1 saved the ranking for sure. My Lord and Savior, Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Well, that'll wrap it up for this episode of the Hoopers Lounge podcast. We hope you enjoyed our return to basketball content. NBA season kicks off less than 2 months away, or tips off, I should say. And yeah, less than 2 months away. I'm very excited for that. Still have a lot of offseason to cover. Still have a lot of predictions to get to. So stay tuned for that in the near future. And we will see you in the next episode.
Peace out, guys.
Peace.